Yo, what's up, guys? Terrell here from Terrell Game Vlogs, here to bring you Musume episode 9 review. This will probably be the most, as of right now, it's probably my most disappointing episode, primarily because of what they decided to go with in terms of their choices for how to adapt the manga material. And the way I'm going to talk about this is literally just talking about what this is, and I'm only going to talk about in relation to the episode. Nothing else, nothing in the future. So this episode starts, and this arc will lead into the end of the series. The D arc, which is, as you learn from episode, is primarily based around Darling or Kurusu getting, Kurusu Kimito getting a threatening letter in the mail saying, if you marry anyone, I'll kill you. The point is, you're trying to draw out the person by going on dates with these girls. The interesting thing here is, though, is that there's a lot of manga anime discrepancy I probably have with this episode, probably more than any other episode, because the first half is setting it up. The second half is him starting his dates, and we get to see Mero and Mia's. For the most part, in the manga, I don't mind the storyline at all. Like, I think it's a fun storyline. And it results in having us have our own specific dates. The only thing I was probably saddened about is that it's pretty much going to be the same kind of group structure it's kind of been already. You know, it's Mia, Mero, Ratchera, Centauria, Poppy, Sue, which have already been in their own little groups to begin with. I mean, let's think about it. When Mero was introduced, who automatically started shit with her? Mia. When Ratchera was introduced, who automatically started shit with her? Saria. And when Poppy and when Sue was introduced, who immediately gravitated towards her? Poppy. So it's the same grouping as it was before. We're just getting a date version of it. But really, I want to talk about the manga anime differences. Now, the first part is heavily different. It's not. I don't feel like it's disgustingly different, but it's the most different in terms of relation to the canon than any other episode. The first thing is they take out pretty much the before opening scene, which is them outside and being like, he's on a date with Mrs. Smith scene, which that scene doesn't really bother me. You took that out because it's not that offensive where I'm like, oh my god, that was such an integral scene. But when we start getting into each of the individual girls' ways of following them around in their various disguises, I think Poppy suffers the worst, which might explain why they gave her the gag at the beginning with the guy at the window. You know, the cute little scene where she's like waving at him in the window, and the guy's waving at her, and they start tapping on the window. I actually thought it was pretty fucking adorable, which might be their way of trying to make up for the fact that they pretty much fucked up Poppy scene. In the anime, the way they do it is like, oh, there's Poppy dressed up as a cosplay girl, and then it kind of directly jumps into the arcade where the phone scene happens. Although the problem I have is that even though they explain what Sue was doing with Mero, is not as, and granted, it's somewhat clearer with Poppy, is not as clear. What I mean by that is that it's clearer in the sense that you can actively see Sue in her cleavage that Poppy doesn't technically have. But it's also the fact that it's not the whole, dropping the phone in her cleavage that technically Poppy doesn't have because the cleavage is Sue. This part doesn't really actively explain that Sue is Poppy's arms. Like, in the manga, there's a scene where the phone rings and Poppy's struggling to get it because it's like, Sue, get the phone, and Sue's just like this. Like, I don't know where to grab, and then she finally grabs the phone and picks it up, and then like the girl, and then Centauria and like Mia are yelling at her, and it's like, it's not my fault. Sue, these arms aren't mine, they're Sue's. Like, and then there's also the funny, cute scene with Sue stealing somebody's water and drinking it, and Mia being like, "Don't steal other people's water, you ass." Like, there was a scene before it that kind of explicitly showed what it was, and then we also got a weird scene with the otaku asking her for a picture and her doing a pose. Which I wouldn't mind that scene being skipped because it added nothing. But the scene showing that the arms aren't hers makes more sense because in the anime's context, although you already have an assumption that that is Sue, it's not as clear and obvious to a viewer. So I could see people looking at the following scene that follows after it, which is where she's grabbing all over her body, sexually harassing Poppy pretty much. And people being confused by it because it doesn't make as much sense as it would have if you had just added in the scenes with her doing the hand thing and them explicitly mentioning that, oh, those arms aren't hers, those are Sue's arms. I mean, most people will get it. I just thought the convenience was weaker because of it. And then probably the Centauria Mia scene is pretty much like it is in the manga. That's pretty safe. The only difference is when Mia notices them walking away. In the manga, they make it obvious they're walking to a love hotel, whereas in the anime, it's like Mia just assumes it's a love hotel. By the way, the snake references that are in there are in the manga. That's not a... I'm pretty sure they timed the episode release with the Metal Gear Solid thing, but in terms of the canon, it's a reference to Metal Gear, but it's not like they planned it. It's not like the mangaka planned to have the damn episode come out. Well, he didn't plan it. He wasn't writing it with the intention for Metal Gear The Phantom Pain. It wasn't like for that shit. That just happened to be a Metal Gear game coming out. But the scene that probably annoys me the most, from the first half anyway, is the Ratchura scene. The scene, for the most part, plays out the same until you get to the portion where where Ratchura's about to go up the wall. It's like right before Mia jumps on her saying that Darling wouldn't cheat. In the manga, she kind of has a serious moment and goes, "You always talk about mistress this, mistress that, but are you actually prepared to see him cheat?" In the anime, they kind of play it off. They kind of say the same thing, but they play it off way too lightly, where it's like, it's okay, you can sit down here and wait. Like, you can sit down here and wait on me or whatever the fuck. And then she freaks out and goes, he's not cheating. Which I didn't understand the change in dialogue because it doesn't change any sequence after that. They just kind of made light of it, which to me just shows that they were just trying to make... They're trying to make Monster Musume way more of a chilled, whatever the fuck kind of show versus the more serious nature it has. Which is one of the reasons why I'm not as a fan of what they did for Ratchura's line, because it's like, that was another thing showing into her character, that she's a lot more considerate and caring than you would think she is. For a spider, you wouldn't think that. You would think the opposite. But the fact that she wanted to test Mia's resolve in a way and go, are you prepared to see this? That to me, that speaks more volumes about her character. And then the other thing that they changed is, instead of in the manga, Mia and Ratchura are thrown inside the room versus in the anime where their heads are just grabbed and pulled in, which to me I think was toned down just for time constraints. A lot of these edits, except for the line change, was obviously made for time constraints because they're throwing 2 chapters into 1 episode, and because of the more girls, there's too much shit to get in for just 1 fucking episode. There's too much shit to fit in 1 episode, which is why shit's getting cut. The second half was pretty much by the numbers to the manga, except for like 2 things. The first thing is that for some reason the anime decided to exaggerate the fuck out of Meryl's royal mode and how the aquarium people kind of fell all over her. In the anime, it's super ridiculous, where in the manga, it's just a simple, here's a free pass kind of thing. And the part that I think was probably the most offensive is at the very end. In the anime, they just completely skipped the scene where Mia's hugging Darling after the whole necklace thing. They actually get a lot. This is one thing I like this episode because it has a lot of cute Mia moments, Mia and Kurusu moments. But the worst thing they did is that in the anime, when she hugs him afterwards, it kind of just goes to the ending. In the manga, there you see Meryl rolling back in the wheelchair and them being like, "Oh, let's go home," and then Meryl goes, "I'm happy, but what's this tightness in my chest? My gills aren't wet, so what's happening to me?" Which is a reference to Meryl falling in love with Kurusu as a main love interest instead of the fucking tragic maiden shit that she's been on this so far. Taking that scene out bothered me, probably was the thing that bothered me the most in this episode. Now granted, Meryl is like my least favorite girl, so it's not like, oh my god, fuck you. But it bothers me because that's an integral scene and a crucial part to her character development. Because it builds onto itself. for that being a thing. So I'm like, I don't understand why you took it out. And that bothers me because there are a few scenes coming up that I hope they don't take out that have similar implications. So, and next week is actually chock full of most of them. So, the next week is pretty much the Sue Poppy one, the Sue Poppy date, and the Centauria Retro date, with various Mon members following them. As you saw, it was Tonia, I think is her name, the ogre. For this episode, it will be Zombina for Sue and Poppy, and it will be, I forget the girl's name. I think it's Mono something. Mono something. I don't remember off the top of my head. For Centauria and Retro. And I'll just warn people now for the fans of the anime. The way the second half of this was structured is pretty much how the next episode is going to be structured. If you like it, you'll like it. If you don't, you got another episode of it. Actually, you probably got another. Yeah, you got another episode of it. So, yeah. So please tell me your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Do you feel like there was a reason why they changed the dialogue for Ratchura, or why they skipped the true romance part of her developing for Mero? Are you mad that they took it out now that you know? Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Terrell Game Vlogs. Vlogs the game for your boy Terrell, and I'll catch you guys later. P-E-E-E-E. So, boom.